Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Facebook Live with yours truly, Alisa Vitti. I am the founder of the Flow Living Hormone Center. I am the creator of the MyFlow period tracking and cycle syncing app. And I am the creator of the cycle syncing method. So I'm really excited to be here today. I'm a women's hormone and nutrition expert and the best-selling author of Woman Code. So today, and every Thursday we get together to talk about things you need to know about your hormones and food and how to live your healthiest life in a female body. And I think what's unique about my work is that it's really about a female-centric health paradigm that I'm interested in forwarding to all of you. So hello, welcome. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about coffee. I have some research that you must know before you drink another sip of caffeine. And we are going to break it all down today. But I want to start with where are you listening from? And what's your caffeine addiction situation? How many cups? How deep is your love for caffeine? Let's hear it. How many coffee addicts do I have on the with us today? And how many cups? Do you feel like you need it for energy? You can't live without it. Like, I want to know how bad it is for you. What happens when you don't drink it? Let me know. This is going to be a very interactive conversation. So I'm fully prepared. And I guess I say things that are a little bit controversial, I guess. And this caffeine conversation will be definitely flying in the face of what we conventionally hear about caffeine. Caffeine, and I'll be reading what you guys are saying. Caffeine is the most consumed psychoactive substance on the planet, and it is universally regarded as a health beneficial substance to consume. It's brain protecting, it's life extending, it has all these miraculous qualities to it. And if it's too good to be true, sometimes it is. So I want to just sort of read what you guys are saying. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit. Kala switched to decaf 6 months ago, but wants to know if that's bad too. We'll talk about that. Caroline gets her caffeine from chocolate. Gina quit caffeine in January and is using matcha, but in the luteal phase. Oh, well, it's a good one. She finds that she's craving that too. Cameron only drinks it for pleasure. Usually mushroom coffee with collagen, MCT in the morning, and then 2 cups black coffee in the afternoon. Cameron, 2 cups of black coffee in the afternoon. Seems like there could be a necessity there. If you're drinking 2 in the afternoon, it could be an energy lull that you're trying to compensate for. So I would challenge you there. Okay, and then Leah from Nashville, on and off coffee for a year, gotten back into matcha black tea, decaf, but black coffee definitely makes you feel bad. Decaf all the way. Jennifer from Buffalo, 3-year-old twin girls. She needs her caffeine. How much are you having, Jennifer? I'm curious. Maria from Colombia, 1 or 2 cups a day of black coffee. Bettina from Baltimore, recovering coffee addict. Yep, there you go. Maggie swings between green tea and strong latte. I love this. Is so fun because it's like, we don't think of caffeine the same way we think about, other substances, but the addiction is real. Caroline was told by a doctor to quit drinking coffee years ago because of chest pain and anxiety. I'm going to talk about why that was happening to you. Sarai from Northern California loves coffee but gives you panic attacks. Very, very interesting. We're going to talk about that too. Eveli loves the black coffee smell in the morning. It is a good smell. It is a good smell. Okay, let's get into how did I become such a staunch advocate for women not to drink coffee? Well, I actually really, it's not a personal mission of mine to get people off coffee or caffeine, but just the same way that I sort of stumbled upon the crisis of hormonal imbalance through my own hormonal imbalance that all women face, I also stumbled into this whole caffeine conundrum by virtue of my body reacting negatively to caffeine. And of course, it led me to be very curious as to why that was happening. And then the research continues to roll out, and I just wanted to do an aggregate today because we've had some breaking research even as recently as 2015, so it just seemed like it was time for me to update the conversation. But in my when I was 20, I went for my annual GYN visit for my exam, and as part of that visit, as you know, they always do a breast exam, and my one doctor was there, and she was doing the exam and felt something, and was stopped and kind of fixated on that area, and was mentioned that there was a lump. And then the next thing I knew, she had brought two other doctors in. They were male doctors, by the way. And I'm just sitting there as if I'm no longer there. They're just all focused on this breast lump and trying to decide if it was, what it was. And it was terrifying. I was truly scared because, everybody knows that lumps in the breasts always have a risk for being something more significant, and it was a terrifying moment for sure. Luckily, they were able to discover that it was a fluid-filled cyst, and I just thought that was odd, and I said, well, why do I have this? I've never had this problem before. And the doctor started asking me some questions. The other two guys left, and it was just my regular GYN, and she said, she was asking me some questions about my recent lifestyle, which was the only time that's ever happened to me in my GYN experience. And she was asking about stress, and she was asking about what I was doing at the moment. I said, well, actually, that was 20, and I always go for my GYN visits around my birthday, so it was May. I said, yeah, I just finished finals at university, and so I've been up late pulling all-nighters and, studying long nights for exams, and yeah, I've been drinking a ton of caffeine. Now, y'all are so adorable with your 1 or 2 cups a day. I mean, I loved caffeine, loved it. I think I discovered it on my first trip to Italy, and then that was it. It was like espresso. There's never not a good time to have an espresso or a latte or cappuccino. I loved it. And then during finals, it was, they had like a coffee cart in the library, so like you could get it all night. And I was getting it all night with the caffeine. So I was really definitely having quite a bit. So she said, well, that'll do it. Exposure to caffeine, and at this time, this is, nearly 20 years ago. So she said, well, we don't know why exactly, but we know that caffeine can affect some women and increase the risk of developing cysts in the breasts. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And she said, no. And I said, okay, well, that's it. That was it. I was scared enough from the experience of having this large cyst at such a young age, and now knowing that, I also at that time knew that I already had PCOS, and so I was already forming cysts on my ovaries. I said, okay, if caffeine is going to be increasing the rate at which my body produces cysts, this cannot be a good thing for me. So just based on that alone, I stopped coffee, and I've been caffeine-free for all this time, since the age of 20. And I want to share with you all this other research that has come out in the past 20 years about specific effects that caffeine has on women so that you can make your own decision. Because like I said, it's just really heavily marketed as this like ultimate health food, and there's this whole upgraded coffee with the oils and the butter, and I just really wanted to have a conversation with my Flow sisters about what's what, so that you know what's what. So the research that has come out, I'll just say it in a sort of aggregate, has made me, is just confirmed, and it makes me very grateful that I made the decision to stop. And from this whole point of view of energy, I've never ever struggled with not having enough energy. And as you all know, I run Flow Living, I write, I speak, I have a daughter, I have a husband, I have a full life, and caffeine is not something that I need to keep me going in any way, shape, or form. Katie, you love Bulletproof coffee. We're going to talk about it. We'll find out if you can have it, okay? Because there is a way to know, and that's the exciting thing. This doesn't have to be just about what I think or our opinions. The research that's come out now really does make this something that you can get a specific answer to the question, should you specifically drink coffee? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the 3 pieces of research that I think you absolutely must know. I want to talk about the Bulletproof coffee trend, and I want to talk about biohacking for women, and I want to talk about what I think you can do to deal with caffeine, whether you're going to continue drinking it, how do you deal with it properly, or if you really need to make the switch, how do you do that successfully? Sarah, this is totally recorded, so if you want to watch it later, it'll be up on the Flow Living Facebook page. Okay, so let's start with the pieces of research that you need to know. So I kind of gave a little teaser about the first one, which is that caffeine causes cyst formation in the breasts. And there was this really interesting study that was done. They wanted to look at different dietary effects on breast tissue. So they studied caffeine, fat, fiber, and antioxidants. Okay, and they wanted to see which of these dietary inputs would affect the rates of developing benign breast disease, cysts in the breast, fibrocystic breasts, right? So they looked at fat, and it was always thought that increasing fat, dietary sources of fat, was going to increase the rate of fibrocystic breast disease. But this study actually conclusively stated that that's not the case. That, in fact, the only one of the 4 dietary inputs that has any positive association with an increased risk for benign breast disease is caffeine. Then, in 2008, and then again in 2015, 2 separate studies were looking at the correlation between the development of benign breast disease and increased risk for breast cancer, and showed some correlation there. So if we have all of us women drinking lots and lots of coffee, and some of us cannot metabolize caffeine, and this is impacting breast tissue in a way that could make it more susceptible to then later on developing breast cancer, that's information we should know when making decisions about what we're drinking. I think that's really important. I wanted you to know, especially if you have a history of breast cancer in the family, all of this increases risk. And this is not about being fear-based. This is about being informed, because just because a food has health benefits doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy for everyone in all circumstances. And I think caffeine is one of the biggest ones that we should be investigating as women, because it is just so universally accepted as safe. And the research is not so saying that to me as someone who's looking at these things. So that's the first thing. I mean, and who knew? I didn't know. I thought caffeine was fine. I thought it was like a rite of passage. You become old enough, you start drinking caffeine, as opposed to whatever it was before. I guess it might have been before in the 20s and 30s, smoking cigarettes. Now in like the 90s, it was like coffee shops, and it really actually is that it's a substance and it needs to be considered for each individual's biochemistry. Okay, to that end, big piece of information here is that I think just like women should get genetic testing before they consider taking synthetic birth control, research points out that women should be getting genetic testing before consuming coffee or caffeine, just caffeine. Any kind of caffeine, green tea, black tea, matcha tea, coffee. You need a genetic test. It turns out, I love science. Turns out that there is a gene that makes an enzyme that your liver uses to break down caffeine. It's called the CYP1A2 gene. CYP1A2 gene. So nature is a bell curve, but about half of the population are considered slow metabolizers, meaning there is a variation in this gene whereby you make less of the enzyme that this gene is supposed to help you make. Okay? So if you are half of the population 90% of the population has a variation in this gene. Only 10% of the population are what they call rapid metabolizers. These must be the people who love, the upgraded coffee and living on coffee. They can successfully do it. Their body is efficient at metabolizing that caffeine. They don't have a variation in this gene. Their enzyme is present for their liver to do its job, and it does not affect them negatively in any way. Those people do exist, but the vast majority of us have a variation in the gene. It's called the CYP1A2 gene. And Katie's asking about heterozygous versus homozygous. So I believe, and I'm not a genetic counselor, but I believe that in the heterozygous conversation that means that you are like a medium metabolizer. So you're not great at it, you're not terrible at it, right? Which is where a lot of the population falls. So this is really important. So first and foremost, there's a gene that provides your liver an enzyme to break down coffee. If you have a variation in this gene and you can't make enough of this enzyme, then you can't safely consume this substance. Fact. What your opinion of it is doesn't matter. It is just not as easy for your body to deal with. And I love that about what's possible now in the intersection of genetic testing and functional medicine. It makes it so factual and undeniable, and it takes it out of the realm of theory and opinion, which is great. So great. Okay, so then there was a study that was done in 2006. This study, I think, is really important because it's linking kind of why this is such a specific conversation for women to be considering in an extra special way. In 2006, the research was published about how 2 cups of coffee a day for people in whom were the slow metabolizers, right? They had this gene variation, and they lack enough sufficient enzyme to metabolize caffeine. Just 2 cups of coffee a day for people with this situation in their body increase their risk of heart attack. Now, you may recall, right? I don't know if you've seen these runway shows. Red for, the American Heart Association has this like celebrity wear red, go red thing, right? Because heart disease is the #1 killer of women, right? And here we have a link suggesting why that might be. If you're someone who's drinking a lot of coffee, and who isn't? Who do you know? What mom, what friend, what coworker do you know that is not living on coffee? I mean, everybody's doing it, and it can be really, really dangerous. I was just so excited to be sharing this with you guys because, you know, it's this is what science is really good at. Making things logical so that you can make a decision that makes sense for your health as opposed to guessing. We can do better than guessing or assuming. Now, Renee, genius Renee, what a great question. What an excellent question. What a very smart, you know, I love working with women. You don't miss a thing. Slow metabolizers just for coffee, or would they metabolize other things slowly? You bet, Renee. It turns out this gene, the CYP1A2 gene, is also involved in estrogen metabolism. So now we have a link between your PMS, your caffeine intake, breast cancer risk, heart attack risk. One enzyme, one gene variation. It certainly begs a lot of questions. Are all these things linked? Definitely in terms of studies that have been conclusively done. Not enough, but it begs the question. If this gene is also producing an enzyme that your liver needs to break down estrogen, and you're struggling with the diagnosis of PMS, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, etc., caffeine should be yet another reason why caffeine should be off the table for you, because your body is already struggling to deal with this, to try to compensate for this insufficiency in this enzyme that the CYP1A2 gene cannot make for you. So that's number two, research. There's a lot of research packed into, like, you know, this sort of idea that we should maybe consider genetic testing before drinking this substance, because it's different than other foods. It has, and in fact, some would say pretty soon we'll be testing for just all the kinds of foods that are safe for each individual, but that's a whole other conversation. Now, just in case you don't want to go get genetic testing, which there's so many different ways you can do that now. There's a ton of companies that will let you do at-home saliva genetic testing. And Bethany, I'll answer that question in a second. So you could do that, but if in case that you don't feel inclined to spend the money to do the genetic testing, you can look out for signs of caffeine toxicity, which I was experiencing and just ignoring because I didn't know to connect the dots when this was happening to me. So signs of caffeine toxicity, which you know, when you Google that, it'll give you like a specific milligram dose of how much caffeine you'd have to take in order to reach this level. But that doesn't factor in your genetic variance. So this can vary. Bethany's asking, well, how much does the dose make the poison, right? Well, yes, in the sense that depending on your gene variation and how much enzyme you're making, it bears to reason that, you know, a little bit could be something that you might be able to tolerate, but you could reach that threshold where you're starting to feel adverse reaction much sooner. So the signs to look out for are jitteriness, like where you just feel jittery, anxiety, as Meredith just pointed out, that's a sign of caffeine toxicity, headaches, irritability, diarrhea. A lot of people walking around thinking they have IBS with diarrhea could just be having some caffeine toxicity from this genetic variation. Fast, irregular heartbeat, right? Fast and or irregular heartbeat. I definitely got a lot of palpitations and got this sort of like jitteriness. That was for me what it was. And shortness of breath. Katya, all caffeine is caffeine. Whether it's in green, black, matcha, coffee, it's caffeine. And this gene variation doesn't care which form you're taking it in. It's only concerned with how much enzyme the liver has to work with to break down the caffeine. All the caffeine is the same. So I think it's a really, so Amanda, great, proving the point. You're getting jitters, anxiety, palpitations, probably if you have more than 3 cups a week. So here, someone was saying if you pass 1.5 cups a day, Amanda's having it 3 cups a week. This is just all signs that your body is struggling. So let me know if you've had some experiences of caffeine toxicity, because it is a real phenomenon. It's just not discussed. And so we brush it off as like something else. So I must be stressed out or anxious about something. We think it's psychosomatic, but it's really a reaction to a substance. So we'll talk, Anne, about what to do to maybe, when you are drinking it occasionally, to deal with the toxicity that your body might be experiencing. Okay. Last sort of bucket of research that I wanted to present to you today is that caffeine has been well documented to increase your rates of infertility. This is significant. This is a really significant conversation because, as you know, we have this phenomenon, or I personally think we're having an epidemic proportion or epidemic rates of infertility at this point. So infertility is on the rise, and not just infertility in general, but idiopathic infertility, which means no known cause. Why is this happening to so many young, seemingly healthy women? Blood works fine, hormones seem to be in the normal range. What's going on? Why can't women get pregnant anymore? Why are men struggling with all of this, issues? And it's a bigger conversation that has to do with a lot of factors, but one of the pieces that is just left out is this caffeine link. 3 cups of coffee a day leading up to a pregnancy can increase your rate of miscarriage by 74%. Did you know that? If you're trying to get pregnant and if you've struggled to conceive, and it's a precious, precious thing, and no one is talking about the fact that your coffee habit could be a problem. I mean, I just feel like that's really, really, really important information that is just not being discussed. So now it's being discussed. For men, this was a big study that came out in 2015. 2 cups of coffee a day for men and women, but it was exciting because they included the men. For some reason, I guess we never do that, so it makes it more significant, right? If men and women drink 2 cups of coffee during an IVF process, it decreases dramatically the success rate of implantation during that IVF cycle. Really important. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with clients over the years who've come to me during IVF process to try to increase their chances. And I always ask, well, what has the doctor talked to you about in terms of modifying your diet or any restrictions on food or anything, and some of these women have been, history of smoking and they're like, literally we're told not to change anything, including coffee, including smoking. How is that possible that is not impacting conception? It's not. It's not possible that those things just don't have anything to do with success rates. So now we have some great research to show, in fact, that you cannot think about conceiving, supporting fertility, IVF without thinking about food in general. But now caffeine in particular has a lot of evidence to say that it's a big no-no. It, beyond the IVF process and the miscarriage rates, it definitely dramatically reduces it dramatically suppresses fertility and ovulation and sperm health and activity. So this is something else, just another piece of the puzzle when it comes to caffeine and fertility. So those are the big three. I have one more thing I want to share, and then I want to get into the whole, the upgraded coffee trend and how do we as women really navigate biohacking our energy if it's not with upgraded coffee, and then what do you do? Like, what's the coffee survival strategy? What's the, if you're going to either detox or if you're going to deal with it on occasion, how do you safely, how do you help your body, compensate for this lack of enzyme or this decreased enzyme production? And Anna, yes, how to increase your energy levels without coffee. I got the lock on this. Like I said, I'm 20 years caffeine free. I've got a toddler. I'm a busy lady. I got you. Okay. So let me just give this one other thing that is little known, but I just want you to be aware. Caffeine, when you take it in, in order for your liver to process it, right, it has to recruit micronutrients to help flush it from the system. Renee, it's not a stool or a blood test to test for this gene. You would do a genetic test, okay, like from 23andMe, or there's so many different companies that provide genetic testing. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. Yes, and 20 years, 20 years caffeine free. I came out of that appointment with my doctor when they found the lump in my breast at 20 years old, and then was given a little bit of insight into what I've learned a lot more about, the connection between cyst formation in the body and caffeine. And I just quit cold turkey that day. I was just scared straight, so to speak. I was scared right out of my cup of coffee. So here we are. And, I have a lot to share about 20 years living caffeine free in Manhattan, living a busy lifestyle, doing all the do. It's totally possible. Oh yes, Katie, that's another brand, right? My Fitness Genes. So, Kate, why, if coffee's bad for you, why do studies show it's neuroprotective and increased longevity? Yes, studies do show that too. But on whom are these studies being done? People with the people who have an abundance of this enzyme, right? Potentially. I haven't heard anyone addressing that in any of those studies. They're just sort of like set universally, this is neuroprotective and longevity enhancing because it increases autophagy in the cells. But is that for everyone? It's unlikely, because if you're a slow metabolizer, you actually you have increased toxicity, inflammation. You're not getting the neuroprotective benefits. You're not getting the increased longevity benefits. It's not giving you the same benefits. So that's my whole point here. It was once, it is currently still being marketed to everyone as this ultimate health hack, but the research says otherwise for women. And I also think that there is a gender bias in research. Not that I think, it's pretty factual. Most studies are done on male subjects because it's quote unquote easier for controlling for variations in what they're looking to test and study. These pieces of research that I've brought to you today have been done exclusively on women, and therefore are really relevant to us in a very gender specific way. And I do think that when we think about biohacking, it must be gender specific, because how can it not be? How is it possible that what works in a male physiological environment, their internal hormonal situation, how is it possible that there is 100% translation over to the female physiological environment? It's not. It's illogical. It is not good science to just say that if it's good for men, it's good for women. Nonsense. I call nonsense. Okay. back to, so much to say. I'm not even halfway done. We're going to try to get to everything. So as I was just saying, I just wanted to quickly, all the studies, Caroline, are in the blog post that came out yesterday. If you go to flowliving.com, you can Google in the blog, click on the blog, and on the top there's a search bar. I mean, it should be the first one that you see because it was just posted yesterday, but if you want to search, it's the 3 secret reasons women can't drink coffee, and all the research links are in this article, absolutely. So as I was trying to say, when you take in caffeine, whether you're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer, whether you have whichever gene variation you have on the CYP1A2 gene, the body will recruit micronutrients to help it flush out of the system. So it is depleting you of key micronutrients, specifically B vitamins and magnesium in great quantity, which has a really vicious cycle of making you more tired, because magnesium and your B vitamins, which are both water soluble, are what help you maintain good energy. So the more coffee you drink, again, agnostic of your ability to process it, will cause you to become more fatigued over time by virtue of depleting these key micronutrients. So that's another important piece of the equation for you to start thinking about how you want to have a relationship with caffeine. Okay, let me just quickly do the bulletproof coffee thing and the upgraded coffee and the MCT oils and all the business with that. I think that for the 10% of the population who I will call the caffeine guzzlers, right? You guys have you make plenty of the enzyme, you have no adverse effects because of your gene variation. This is great. What a great way to make coffee more safe. Caffeine of any sort, whether it's matcha or teas. You know, in India, they've been doing this for centuries, right? They make chai out of black tea with, full-fat milk. I mean, this is an old practice that has gotten a new twist. But, absolutely, adding in good essential fatty acids to this substance will create a better, make it easier on your adrenal system and your blood sugar in terms of what the caffeine will do to both the adrenals, to cortisol and insulin. So I think that for sure, if you're someone who can safely consume it, that's a great thing to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I'll say here is that I really think as a whole, this whole coffee thing really is great for men in general. Caffeine in general is much more likely to be tolerated by men than women, just by virtue of how our physiologies differ. So on a very core level, women, because we are entrusted with the miraculous task of printing 3D tiny human beings, whether or not we do that, our bodies are wired differently in a very specific way versus men, which is we are designed to retain anything and everything that we take in for longer. We know this, for example, in the experience of alcohol. Women versus men, they call it the bar stool test. So if you give a man and a woman sitting on a bar stool the same quantity of alcohol, a man will have to get up sooner to go urinate than a woman, because his body is not designed to retain fluids the way that ours is, and he will excrete that alcohol faster than a female. For coffee, the case is the same, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is men have to compensate for this major drop in their energy that happens around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where they just tank on cortisol and testosterone, which means their ability to focus and have stamina and energy and stable moods and concentration and memory just kind of really goes downhill every single day around 3 o'clock. So caffeine is an extraordinary substance for men and has been for centuries to help them with whatever all day activities they've decided to do, whether it's marching through vast landscapes, or, you know, being on the war front, or being in factories, or being in corporate, or whatever they're doing. And the ethos of the male-centric lifestyle is push, go, don't stop. And the macro and the micro here are really an interesting thing to look at, you know, like the testicles, for example, continuous production. And so you would kind of see how maybe energetically this would translate into sort of like the male point of view, which is just go, 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 right? Women, on the other hand, totally different. We retain things for longer. So whether or not you're, you know, whatever gene variation you have, you're going to be holding on to this caffeine for longer. It's going to be circulating in your system longer. Is that in our best interest? And we don't have the same need to compensate for energy dips, because your energy is not dictated exclusively by a 24-hour cortisol pattern. You have the added advantage, and it's this huge advantage, of the 28-day 4-phase hormonal cycle that interacts with that 24-hour cortisol pattern and sustains your energy. That's what it's designed to do, because again, you are entrusted with the task of 3D printing tiny human beings, so you get the better ecosystem, just by nature's design, right? So we don't have to compensate. We don't have to push constantly. And if we were looking at the macro and the micro here, the ovary itself does not continuously produce eggs like the testes do. It produces one a month. And so there's a different energetic piece of work at work here for women. So I think just from a philosophical point of view, why we are drinking coffee should be called into question as well. You know, we're not supposed to be working in factories all the time. We're not supposed to be just go, go, go all the time. We all know that that's not healthy. And caffeine really does support that philosophy. So if you're trying to be more in alignment with your feminine energy and reclaim your Kate, can't talk now, I'm 3D printing an eyeball. Yes. You know, if you are trying to be in alignment and reclaim, you know, a sense of your feminine essence, then I question caffeine's place in your life as a woman as a whole. It takes us up and out of our bodies. All substances do. They take us up and out. When for women, from a spiritual point of view, the path is down and in to deeply connect to our inner wisdom. So that's just a philosophical piece here, because I couldn't help myself. But whether or not you agree with the philosophy, from a scientific point of view, biohacking must be, biohacking your energy, right, whether you're using coffee or not, must be gender specific. And that's why I wanted to bring you all this gender specific research today. We can't just say, I mean, there's a lot of like guys drinking upgraded coffee, right? Because it really works for a lot of guys. So, you know, I think that we have to be thinking in a more gender specific way when it comes to our health, for sure. Okay. So let's talk about, like, now what? Because I'm sure, Lexi, what do I think about matcha? Caffeine is caffeine. Again, when we listen, when you're coming from the point of view of this gene variation and how much enzyme your liver has to break down caffeine, it doesn't matter what form you're taking it in. I don't take in any, no coffee, no matcha, no green tea, no black tea. It all makes me feel bad in different variations, caffeine being the most extreme reaction I'll have. But all of it, I know, is creating toxicity for me in a reaction in my body. So that's important for you to know. Because again, we are so addicted that we're looking for a healthy substitute, and matcha right now is like the super popular one. I have not explored. I'm going to give you alternatives. It's such a social aspect of life. I am telling you, in 20 years of being caffeine free, it has not prevented me from having that normal. I meet people in coffee shops all the time for meetings. It totally does not interfere. So I'll give you like the real how I do it and what I think you should consider. So there's two things I want to present today. Oh, chocolate. Everybody's asking me like chocolate and Swiss water organic decaf and decaf. So listen, there is caffeine in chocolate. Depending on how much the variation you have in the gene, caffeine in chocolate could be problematic for you. Chances are good that you won't be consuming as much chocolate as you would be coffee, so small amounts of chocolate are still probably going to be reasonable for you. Decaf, anything, decaf black tea, decaf green tea, decaf coffee. Here's the problem. How do they get the caffeine out of those things, out of those substances? It is not by natural means, my loves, okay? It is by a chemical process, and those chemicals are endocrine disruptive. So that's not good either. And there is not a 0% caffeine reduction, like it doesn't reduce down to 0%. It usually still remains into, 3 to 5% caffeine. So if you're drinking a lot of decaf, not only are you still getting some caffeine, but now you're flooding your body with endocrine disruptive chemicals. Not good. Okay. Anna wants to know if I eat chocolate. I do, but not a lot. And interestingly enough, I feel like since my pregnancy, I can tolerate it even less. So I still do have it. On occasion, I'll have a square or two of HU brand, HU brand, organic dark chocolate that's sweetened with coconut crystals. And I have just a little bit. Sarah, Swiss water decaffeinated, is that chemical free? I don't know about that one. So if that is, great. But I don't know how from water they would extract all the caffeine. So we just need to look into it more, and I'd be very happy to be educated. But still, worth being. Bethany's asking, Starbucks is claiming their coffee is decaffeinated by cooking it longer to remove the caffeine. I don't know. I am not an expert in the decaffeination process, but so let's investigate, because I can feel the fervor for keeping some coffee in our lives. Let's learn more, find out, send me some info. I'll look, but I'm suspicious. How do we pull the caffeine out? It's pretty much a part of it's what it is. It's what the coffee bean is. Delivery system for that. It's like, how would you remove, I'm just thinking of any herb, right? Like any herb that we use, like echinacea, right? If you grow an echinacea plant in your yard, how would you de-echinacify? How would you take the echinacea out, right? You would decoct the echinacea away from the material of the plant. And that's what you're left with, the active substance. But okay, anyway, let me get to the transition process, because Anne is talking about this is going to be a process. Let me walk you through it for you, because I want you to feel like you can make some choices here, because I'm curious to know, as I'm going to walk you through this choice, given the research, given the conversation that I've presented to you today, what do you think you want to do, right? I want to know which bucket you're falling in. Do you want to, you feel like you're probably like a medium, okay metabolizer of caffeine, but you want to reduce and offset any adverse effects? Are you in that category? Or do you suspect that you are a slow metabolizer of caffeine based on some of the things we've talked about, and you really want to get rid of it? So I want to know where you are. Which are you in? category A, which is you're going to still maybe keep a little bit in, but you want to do it safely, or you're in category B, you're pretty sure you've got the gene variation and you need to get it out of your life. So let me know where you're at, because I'm going to break those two things down for you. Megan, you quit coffee when you read Woman Code because you were a heavy coffee drinker. Yeah, good for you. Anne's saying she's probably a slow metabolizer. Jenna, slow, want to get rid of it, 100%. Seems so unrealistic. It's so doable. Bethany, you helped me kick caffeine once. I'm going to go for it again. Woohoo, good. Well, good. History repeats itself. You can do it. Megan feels like a totally new person being off coffee. This is good. Oh my God, Kayla, literally have an Amazon shipment of bulletproof decaf coffee sitting on my doorstep. Stop drinking it altogether. That's great. Okay, Katie, she's not sure yet. That's fine. You can keep doing your own food and body experiments. That's what I want. I want you to be your own, hormone hacker. Leah, all in for no caffeine. Great, but maybe want to keep decaf. Good. Laurel's saying, I want to say B, but realistically you're an A. Okay, I'm going to make sure that you're all happy and healthy. Anna, suspect you're a slow metabolizer, have fibroids, addicted to lattes. Yeah, let me just also make that more clear, because there's been so much that we talked about today. If you have a diagnosed menstrual disorder like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, adenomyosis, it is very likely that your liver is lacking enzymes to deal with estrogen metabolism and getting the caffeine out. So that should make you suspicious that you're also lacking in the same enzymes that work with caffeine. So if you have those issues, and PMS, by the way, is reason enough to suspect because of its estrogen dominant root cause, then this is a thing you really want to think about. Okay, Lexi really wants to cut it out. Charlotte, completely addicted and want to get rid of it. Your new coffee machine. The rituals of our addiction are really fabulous, and it's all beautiful stuff. Carrie saying she's now reconsidering the decaf. Julia, drink so much coffee and love it, but I want to reduce it because she thinks she has estrogen dominance. Yeah, Anne is just sharing that she's had better results not having caffeine than when she has it. This is great. Nina, I want to reduce it, and yet here I am watching you drinking a grande dark roast. I love that. That's what I love about it, is this is a place for real talk, ladies. So thank you for being so real with me and just letting me be real with you. And Gita is talking about how difficult it is because it's very, very addictive, like smoking. Well said, and under discussed. It's truly, truly addictive. Okay. I'm just scrolling. I'm just scrolling to see if there's anything else, because we just sort of see how many. Olivia missed the 3 reasons. Okay, you can go back and watch. I'll post this as soon as we're done. It'll be posted on the Flow Living page. Okay. Sarah, I've seen a noticeable improvement in my PMS symptoms the months I reduce my caffeine intake. It needs to go permanently. Yeah, that's really, really good. Unbelievable. Anne, that's great. That's good. Hey, it is totally an addiction. It's really funny, and we glorify it in this culture because it supports this cult of never-ending productivity that we seem to value above all things, which, when we think about it just for a minute, is so dysfunctional. Like, what a dysfunctional relationship to have with yourself, that you must be forcing yourself to be hyper-productive all the time and hyped up into being productive all the time. So anyway, now that we've all shared, I want to kind of get into the transition path for group A and group B, okay? So group A, this is the group that is like, okay, I'm reasonably concerned because of all the research. I want to reduce and I want to really safeguard myself. So there's 5 things I want you to do. Kate, yes, and then relax with wine. Oh, and more. I mean, that's a bigger conversation, but for sure, Kate, I mean, it's like drink coffee, don't stop, push yourself all day, then how can you quickly unwind? And it's not just alcohol, it's like, sleep aids and all sorts of things. I mean, I was talking to a massage therapist up in the Massachusetts area who works on women in wealthy suburban communities, and one of the most widely used prescriptions that they have are muscle relaxers to deal with stress and giving them an ability to relax quickly on demand. It is just you're right, it's part of a bigger conversation of like, what are we valuing? And I'm absolutely suggesting that we need to bring in values that are not exclusively from the male sort of perspective, which is sort of this like nonstop productivity, which reflects sort of what happens in the testicle. I think we should bring in values that reflect what happened in the ovary, which is about expansion and contraction, balance, rhythms, a cyclical value system. Anyway, that's me, that's cycle syncing. Anyway, let's talk about this transition. You guys keep asking me such good questions. I want to give you the juice. Okay, so if you want to still have it in your life safely, here's the 5-step process that I want you to follow, the plan or the game plan. Okay, number 1, cut out the white stuff. So sugar and dairy have to go. You can replace it with like nut milks or coconut milk to get those good essential fatty acids. Definitely add the upgraded stuff. Put in the MCT oil. Depends on your dairy issues. If you're struggling with hormonal imbalances, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you put the butter in. I would more definitely recommend the MCT oil, coconut oil, things of that nature, but maybe not the butter. And then, for sugar, there's so many great sugar substitutes. I think stevia is just the easiest one because it's not going to spike your blood sugar, and get the liquid drops because they have less of a weird aftertaste, which I know everybody's very particular about what flavors their coffee, if you really love coffee, and people have issues with stevia because of this weird aftertaste. But if you use the liquid drops, it's less and almost unnoticeable. And then, of course, you have the sweetness without the actual blood sugar disruption. So that's the first thing, okay, is make it a healthier cup. Upgrade the cup in all ways. The second thing is keep it to 1 cup, because we know at the 2-cup mark, that 2006 study, right, showed that there's a link between people who are slow metabolizers of caffeine, that 2 cups of coffee increases your risk of heart attack. So just to be safe, keep it to 1 cup and pick the right kind of cup. Who was saying they were drinking a grande? Why don't we take it down to an espresso, right? Or an espresso-based latte. Let's go smaller with our serving size, and 1, okay? Because again, just basing it on the science here of what's safe. To stay within safe ranges is what we got to do. Okay, then the third thing is, let's do it like every other culture on planet Earth when it comes to caffeine ingestion. Only in America, truly, only in America, I've traveled pretty extensively, only here do we have caffeine on an empty stomach first thing in the morning or throughout the day without food. It is bad for your metabolism, for your endocrine system. No one anywhere else on planet Earth takes caffeine in this way. Every other culture consumes caffeine after a full meal as a digestive aid. Think about when you go for dim sum, right? For Chinese food dim sum, right? You have all that great oolong tea with during and after the meal to help you digest and break down the fats and all of that, right? So your caffeine must be, I'm so excited, I'm like bouncing around in my chair. Anna, so 8 ounces espresso? No, honey, no, I know you guys are joking. We're having a good laugh all together here because we're all really taking a look at our level of addiction. And yes, because the U.S. has more of an addictive society, but I think it really comes from this like go thing that we value here, like never stop. Just be on all the time, and that's the path for success. It's not sustainable. It's not good for your body. And now we have a lot of research to back this up, which is really great. Okay, so that's the third piece. The fourth piece is you've got to replenish your micronutrients because, again, whether or not you have that gene variation or the degree of variation that you have, you absolutely are flushing micronutrients out with every sip of that coffee. So in the balanced supplements, there are 2 in particular that you're going to want to have. Replenish, which is the magnesium form that your body can take in big quantities without having any bowel upset. And then all the B vitamins and Energize are going to support your B vitamins and, your adrenals and everything else. But the other ones that I love from this too are Gutsy and Detox, because I mentioned this in the blog. I didn't mention it here yet, but caffeine can actually disrupt the microbiome. So Gutsy is going to help with that. And this is liver food, right? These are the micronutrients your liver needs to do its job better. So just in case you're a slower metabolizer of caffeine than you realize, taking supplements that help your liver do its job better are going to help you deal with caffeine more safely. So there's that. And then the last thing that I would suggest here is to start tracking with the MyFlow app where you notice differences in symptoms as you're consuming this caffeine. If you're still going to have 1 cup of coffee a day, where are you with symptoms throughout the cycle? Does it impact you? And start to consider cycle syncing as a way to make your energy more sustainable as opposed to relying on coffee. Again, cycle syncing is predicated on the idea that you would eat and exercise and prioritize your work according to the 4 phases of your cycle. So you're really taking advantage of the 28-day hormonal shifts that support your 24-hour hormonal pattern. So cycle syncing with the MyFlow app, really a key way to help you long-term deal with boosting your energy as a whole. Okay, now, if you're in group B and you are like, I got to get this out, I know that I'm having coffee toxicity, I know that I'm a slow metabolizer, whether, and go have the genetic testing because it's just, knowledge is fun. If you suspect that you're a slow metabolizer, if you're struggling with diagnosed menstrual disturbances, if you're trying to conceive, if there's risk of heart disease and breast cancer in your family, and you've heard some research that gives you more reason to think about this caffeine in a new light, here's how you break the habit. This is about breaking the habit and maintaining it. So the first thing is you would want to do, and you can look on our blog, there's a 2-week caffeine step-down plan. I went off it cold turkey. I don't know how I did that. I was young. I had headaches. It wasn't fun. But follow the steps in the step-down process. You're going to go from coffee to, black tea to green tea. You're going to switch times of day. I'm going to have you manipulate it so that you really just break the addiction cycle within 2 weeks. Very easy to do. Follow it to the letter. It's free. Just Google it on the blog, okay? Then you're going to, while this is going on, while you're doing that 2-week process, you're going to make breakfast like this new glorious meal of your life. You're going to eat a big breakfast. What did I have for breakfast this morning? I had 2 pieces of millet oat flax bread with turkey meatloaf and avocados. I was hungry when I woke up, so I had a really big breakfast, and I feel great because I knew I had to do this. I have meetings back to back after my Facebook Live. I heart breakfast. Bethany, that's beautiful. So do I. It's the way that it's one of the secrets to my having energy. If I, and I should do a whole Facebook Live on intermittent fasting because I have opinions, but when women do intermittent fasting and they do it in the morning, a lot of them report fatigue because you're messing with your blood sugar. Anyways, a whole other conversation. I'm going way over time. I have so much to share with you ladies today. Thank you for hanging out with me for so long. I promise I am trying to get through this as quickly as possible. Angelica, what time should breakfast be? Within an hour of opening your eyeballs. Okay. Okay, I'll do one on intermittent fasting. Yes, eat the horse, and if you're hungry, eat, because in fact your body. Shannon, we're working on adding a section for notes. Thank you. Yes, that is like one of our top requests. So it's happening. It's coming. Thank you for your patience and love. You guys are the best. I'm so lucky that I get to work with all of you in collaboration to literally build the best women's healthcare brand in the world. So thank you for all of your help and support. Okay, so that's the first thing. Eat a big breakfast. Second thing, while you go through the transition, boost, help, love, extra sauce for your adrenals. Okay, they need it because now they're not getting the caffeine jolt to secrete all the things that are boosting your energy. So, ashwagandha is a great place to start. Rhodiola for concentration, if you feel a little foggy during those weeks, is really good. So those are my two favorites. And then, of course, if you're taking Energize, you need the B vitamins, the B5, the B12, all the Bs to help deal with the fallout from getting off of your caffeine altogether. So a little extra love for your adrenals. Okay, what do I drink? What have I been drinking? What should you be drinking? For the 20 years I've been caffeine-free, what am I putting in my mug? I do a combination. For a long time, it was just kukicha tea. Like I would do kukicha, I would double bag. I would do one kukicha plus an herb tea of my choice, like peppermint or raspberry leaf or dandelion, any other herb, nettle, kukicha, and I would always do a kukicha and with something, right? Sometimes I would just have it plain in the morning, just 2 bags of kukicha for a deep. If you want something that looks like coffee, that has that same astringency on the tongue, that's dark and nutty and has a pleasant aroma, kukicha is the way to go. And you can get really deep with your kukicha. You can buy it loose and boil it and make it really, really a rich experience, or you can be lazy like me and just get the bags. Choice Organics is my favorite flavor, but Eden also makes a really nice one too. And hot water, instant yumminess. I bring it with me everywhere when I have a little container, a little pouch that just in my purse at all times of teas, so that for the social aspect, whenever I'm out and we're at a coffee shop, I have tea. I have the tea that I want. I never compromise on what I want to eat or what I want to drink. I've come prepared. Like I never go to a restaurant that's like, oh, there's really nothing for me to eat here, so life's too short. I pick a restaurant that's like magical, plant forward, delicious. And if I'm at a coffee shop where I don't drink anything in a coffee shop, I make sure to have the teas that are health affirming for me, because that makes me feel good. And health and living a wellness-based lifestyle should be pleasurable. So I always come prepared to guarantee my pleasure, okay? And no, Anna, I don't take the hot water with me. I get it at the shop. So that's that. That's the kukicha thing. Kukicha has negligible amounts of caffeine, less than decaffeinated anything. So you don't have to worry about taking it in. But if you are concerned about it, you can do my other beverage of choice, which is rooibos. Plain rooibos tea, double bagged, again, has this nutty flavor, dark color, very aromatic, very fragrant, does not taste floral or herbaceous. That was the problem that I was having. When you switch from coffee to like herbal teas or truly, caffeine-free drinks, a lot of them are very floral or herbaceous or sweet. And that's not what you want. You want something that's like coffee, that's astringent and dark and nutty and has that roasted kind of quality. So kukicha really will give that to you. But rooibos has been like my favorite lately. And what's great about rooibos that kukicha does not have is that it has more antioxidants than green tea or matcha. Way more. So double bag some rooibos and have a double cup of that. It's delicious. I have that all throughout the day. You can have unlimited amounts of that. Sometimes I'll blend that with another herbaceous nettle or raspberry leaf, depending on where I'm in my cycle. I also get rooibos chai when I want that in the second half of my cycle. I will make a rooibos chai and I'll do an upgraded chai. Again, there's no caffeine, but the health benefits are there, so why not take advantage? So that's the third piece of the going caffeine-free process. And then, of course, I made these supplements for myself. These are the ones I take, and I made them for all of you. You have to replenish. However many years you've been drinking caffeine is however many years of micronutrient depletion you have been struggling with. So get the Flow Balance supplements. Start taking them every day, not just to heal from the depletion, but also to start boosting your energy by giving your body the building blocks it needs to make sustainable energy, right? Instead of trying to compensate for a lack of energy, nourish yourself so you have more energy naturally, right? Tanya, does rooibos or kukicha increase anxiety? No, the opposite. And if anxiety is a problem for you, I'd recommend blending kukicha or rooibos with holy basil tea, which doesn't have a strong flavor at all and is a well-known herb to decrease anxiety and improve stress response in the body. It's a medicine, if you will. And then, of course, Catherine, no, black green tea, not okay. Listen, when I post this, listen up to the beginning where we go over the whole caffeine and the genetic piece of that. Roz is bringing up 4-sigmatic and the mushroom thing. I have not personally tried that, but I am interested to try it. I do think that there's a lot of benefits to some of these medicinal mushrooms. So that's another option that you can have. You can do sort of like an adaptogen upgraded coffee substitute in the morning, especially while you're breaking the habit, because it'll help you heal your adrenals by putting in the ashwagandha, the mushrooms, all of those things. Caroline, the tea for anxiety is holy basil. Joy, you can read Woman Code. 4-sigmatic contains caffeine. Oh, well then no. Again, I have never seen it or tried it. So if it contains caffeine, then no. Then the answer is no. Stick to the teas that I suggested, kukicha and rooibos. And then, Bethany, you've got to make the sugar substitute, okay? Switch to stevia. And then, so someone was asking about where they can read more about cycle syncing and the flow protocol. You can read about that in Woman Code, which is on Amazon. Woman Code by me, Alisa Vitti. And you can download My Flow, which is $1.99, to really dive deep into the protocol and cycle syncing as well. Okay, so the last piece here for those of you who are thinking about eliminating coffee for the long term, and how is it that I've been able to be caffeine free and do all that I do for 20 years, okay, is that you want to start really cycle syncing, because that's the secret. That's the secret for women to be symptom free, to ensure that your hormones are being properly nourished and supported throughout the month. And then from there to get the added benefit that you are supposed to have, which is continuous, sustained energy, right? this is what we're supposed to have, right? For various biological reasons, we are supposed to have more continuous, sustained energy. And when you cycle sync, you get access to that again. So how I do all that I do is by looking at my own MyFlow app and following where I am in my cycle and eating the right way and exercising the right way and prioritizing the right projects in each phase of the cycle for my optimal health and energy and productivity and rest and everything throughout the month. And everything gets done without constant pushing, right? I remind myself that I am a woman and that I operate in a uniquely female way. And my health and my self-care should 100% be coming from a female-centric point of view, which is cyclical, okay? So that is what I have to say about that. Oh my goodness! Epic 90-minute Facebook video live on caffeine and everything, and upgrading our coffee and what we should do, and is it safe for us, and biohacking our energy, and everything, and what to do to get off coffee, what to do to live with coffee more safely. Really, really encourage all of you to incorporate the Flow Balance supplements into your life to protect, if you're going to still do coffee, if you're going to heal from coffee. Let's take our health back, ladies, and let's be informed and educated, because things are different in the female, biological ecosystem, and we need to adjust accordingly. So I hope we had some fun today with some science and research, and I'm really excited for all of you to take on this question about caffeine in your life and let me know how things are going. Until next time, where we'll do another juicy, exciting, controversial topic, take really good care of your ovaries and share this with a friend, because like I said, and we've all shared today for sure, everybody's pretty much addicted to the coffee, to the caffeine. So enlighten a sister, give her the insightful information that you learned about today to help her make some decisions about her health that might change her life for the better. All right, until next time, take really good care of your ovaries. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.